Welcome to My Life. I'm George White, and it's a pleasure for me today to be here with Kathy Genovese. Kathy is part owner in the Candy Cane Christmas Tree Farm, and as I described Kathy, she is the matriarch of the family, and she's the glue that kind of keeps things together going here. So it's a pleasure for me to be here with you today, Kathy, and I think the first time I met you was roughly around 2007. There was a recognition that the farm received from the state about environmental programs that you have here. Can you talk about that for a little bit?
Certainly. There were two occasions that were pretty close together. And welcome, by the way, George. We're so glad that you're here.
Thank you.
There were two occasions. We were we were the first in Oakland County to be MEEP certified. MEEP is a voluntary program through the Department of Ag, and it stands for Michigan Environmental Assurance Program. And what it is, it's a self-policing system where a farm does everything that's necessary to be environmentally correct. Certainly for your own sake, for the water supply, for the environment, for your neighbors. And that was very, very important to us, being that we are in an area where there's many homes, a subdivision next door, and we wanted to do things right. And
you didn't want your runoff water with fertilizer impacting them and so on.
So, and then shortly after that, we won a state award through Farm Bureau for some of the environmental things that we were doing here on the farm, and that was pretty special to us because in trying to do everything right, we got the recognition, quite a very high level recognition for that.
Excellent. Very, very nice. So talking about your life, where were you born?
I was born in Sicily.
Sicily,
in Italy, yes. My parents brought me here when I was 1 year old.
Wow.
And I became a citizen as a child still. So for me, I mean,
from Sicily coming to
Detroit.
To Detroit.
To Detroit. My father was a barber. My mother was a homemaker, and we lived very frugally. As immigrants, you don't have a whole lot. I went to a small Catholic school on the east side of Detroit, both grade school and high school, and then went on to Wayne State University, which in those days was probably a little bit of an oddity, as my parents, well, my mother in particular, expected me to be a homemaker like she was. But no, that opened up a whole new world to me, and I took a liberal arts program at the time, not really having any role models in my life beyond our family, and no one had was a role model in terms of what they had achieved in college. So I got a teaching certificate at the time, and ended up not teaching. The market was pretty glutted. I ended up working at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Michigan for 16 years, and during that time I had two children. They're 9 years apart, and then when we finally...
So let's stop and go back. How did you meet Frank?
Well, I met Frank having come from a culture that was quite... my parents were very strict.
Okay.
And so there wasn't a lot of dating. And he was introduced to us by a friend of the family. I really didn't want that kind of an arrangement, but it turned out that he was very charming, and things worked out quite well. And as of tomorrow, we'll be married 43 years.
Wonderful,
yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
That's quite a lot. That's quite a mark. So
yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you met Frank. You were married. And then you were living where? When you were working for Blue Cross Blue Shield, you weren't here.
No, we were living in Warren at the time, and always felt like a big dog in a small cage. We really wanted space. We both were great lovers of the environment. of the open country and so forth. So our dream was always to move where there was more space and to do something to make that land productive.
So you came to this location here in Oxford that turned into the Christmas tree farm roughly about what time?
Well, we bought the land back in the late 70s, not too long after we were married, and then it took a while before we were able to move out here, and actually we built the house in '89.
Okay, very good. And you mentioned working for Blue Cross, and during that time you said you had the 2 sons.
Yes.
Oldest son is?
My oldest son is Nicholas. He is 40 years old, and he lives in the San Francisco Bay Area right now.
And you described his line of work. He's really unique in the work that he's doing. It's on the cutting edge, so to speak.
It certainly is. We're very proud of him. He is co-founder of a company called Memphis Meats. He is a doctor, molecular genetics. He's a cell biologist, and he developed a way of growing stem cells in a lab as a future food. So he will be making meat products that will be available in the next few years.
Wow.
In stores.
And you said related to the time he was born, you did something here at the farm.
Oh, yes, when our milestones on the farm are measured by when our children were born. The year that Nick was born was the year that we planted. That was in 78. And the year that Michael was born in 87 was our first meager harvest.
So from 87 to this year, that's 41 years then?
87 is 31. From the year that we first planted is 40.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this will be your 31st season then.
Exactly.
For being open for sale.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. And with that, your grandkids now, I know Michael isn't married, your oldest son?
Neither are married. They're married to their work.
Very good. Very good. And as far as the involvement with the Farm Bureau, you spoke of being quite active in that. You're active locally here in Oakland County, or both at the state too?
We are, both my husband and I serve on the Oakland County Farm Bureau Board, and I'm on one of the state committees, the Promotion Education Committee, on a state level.
And that's so important now for the agriculture business.
Oh, I think so very much. As our population moves more and more toward the city, it's important that our young people growing up have a sense of where their food is coming from, have a sense of what the media is saying about GMOs, for example. There's a lot of misinformation on the internet.
About the GMO meaning genetically modified.
Exactly, which you and I are genetically modified because we were born from 2 sets of parents, and most of the things that they say are genetically modified are because they're hybridized from to create a better product. So, but people don't see it that way, and I think it's so important to have that education for people to understand.
You went on a vacation 2 or 3 years back. Again, I want to mention to the folks, Kath and I are friends on Facebook, so we follow I follow vacations and things of that nature. And I think you were down in Florida to a grower down there, and that's when you went to a conference that talked about the GMOs. Yes,
we try to go to, that was a National Farm Bureau meeting, and we actually were able to see some strawberry production fields. In this last trip, we saw some through the Florida Extension University, where they were growing a strawberry. They called it a white strawberry. It was actually a light pink, and that was hybridized to be a sweeter strawberry. And even though it was a lighter color, it was ripe, but very, very sweet in flavor.
Very interesting.
And then we saw some.
We're going to take a break, Kath, and we'll come back in just a moment.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Canine Stray Rescue is Oxford's own local dog rescue. Each year, they take in hundreds of dogs and bring them into suitable homes. A certified nonprofit organization, Canine Dog Rescue strives to give pound dogs a new leash on life. To donate, adopt, or even volunteer, call them at 248-628-0435 or go to their website, dogsaver.org, and click on the Canine Stray Rescue League link.
Welcome back, and we'll continue our My Life segment with Kathy Genovese. And Kathy, we're talking about the involvement with the Farm Bureau and the different conferences that you've gone to and keeping abreast of growing and farming in general, and some of the topics that come up, such things as food and growing food. What are some of the things you picked up from that?
Well, for example, recently our State Farm Bureau developed something called the Mobile Ag Lab. And what it is, it's a giant trailer that travels from school district to school district. In fact, it was here at Brandon as one of its opening seasons. And that allows third and fourth graders to go in and have little mini lessons on ag science of some sort. They might be looking at they might be looking at DNA structures, they might look at how corn is grown or what products are made from corn. So there's a whole list of topics, and it's become quite popular, and the Mobile Ag Lab travels around the state, and we talked about putting in a second one in the next couple of years as well.
That's neat. I think it's important to help children understand, again, where food comes from and nutrition. It ties in with wellness and taking care of themselves, but time passes. I had an experience of spending time on my grandmother and uncle's farm, and you had a chance to know what farming was like. Young people today don't have that experience very often, so what the Farm Bureau is doing is very important for those young people. Back to the Christmas tree operation here. You talked about 31 years. I look upon farming as being faith-based. When you plant the seed, you plant the tree, faith in farming is so critical. And you mentioned you started off, the first planting was in 78, and then what happened in 79?
Well, in 88, the drought of 88 was probably the most traumatic for a farmer, where we had temperatures that were 90 into the low hundreds for 3 months straight and no rain.
Oh, wow.
And there was no sign of green anywhere that year. So it really
you had planted your trees 10 years before that. You had had your first cutting, and then ready for the second year, and that summer comes and
it was pretty traumatic, and we did lose everything that year. But that inspired us to put in the drip irrigation, which was a really good move. That way we can control access to water when it's really needed, and it's
efficient for fertilizing and things of that nature. And
absolutely.
The drip irrigation allows you to put the water right where
exactly, without being evaporated into the air.
And it's an efficient use of the water.
Absolutely.
Very much so. And the involvement that you've had with the Christmas tree operation here, again, Frank does a lot, or when we talk with Frank, we'll find out what he does out in the field. But in the background, for example, today you were working on your end of it. While he may do the tree part of it, you're doing what other area?
The administrative part, the budgeting, the bill paying, the wreath production aspects, any other products that we might have in the barn, that are ancillary.
So all the fancy decorating is done by you and or some of the folks you hire in.
Exactly, yes.
And my experience is that it's absolutely gorgeous.
Well, thank you.
This is definitely a destination, and it's fun to work here. I've helped
Yes, you have.
directing traffic, and
And
it's
it-
just amazing to see the people that come, and it's actually a destination. And over the years, you developed that reputation of being a quality farm, and the experience here is very special for folks coming in, even in limousines. Families come out.
We've had that happen
You've had
too.
that happen
yeah.
too. So.
And we want to make it an exciting time of the year for families. Christmas is very, very special in our minds as in their minds. And the Christmas tree that they get here is a focal point of their celebration in their home. And we are very privileged to be able to provide that for people. So Frank has a special trimming style. People have their precious ornaments, and he trims in a much looser fashion. It's more labor intensive because it has to be done by hand, but it allows the ornaments to hang in open spaces as opposed to being sheared so tight that the ornaments end up laying. So the trees are very special. And I think another thing that brings people to our farm is my husband, Frank.
Honestly.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. He is just a real charming person and makes everybody feel at home and feel loved and gives hugs to all the old ladies. I shouldn't say that, the mature ladies
Yes.
perhaps. But,
And children.
And children. Oh my
And
goodness.
children.
The children just love him, and he loves them right back. But
It's
he's
establishing a relationship
Exactly.
with people over the
Yeah.
years. They look forward
Yeah.
to coming here.
And he's out there to greet them, and if he comes in momentarily, they look for him. Where's Frank?
No, it's very special. Like you say, I've enjoyed my time here, and hopefully this next season I'll be able to help you some too.
Wonderful. We're thrilled.
We're going to try and find a
Okay.
Saturday or two that I can come and help you in the
Fantastic.
parking
I'm
lot
thrilled.
because it is so enjoyable. You've talked about your trees. You've talked about some of the wreaths you've made. You don't just sell them to people, but through the Farm Bureau, you've had the opportunity to do what at the state level?
Actually, that was through our Michigan Christmas Tree Association. And our state association, and this goes up the line to the National Christmas Tree Association, there's a contest held every year at it's actually every other year. They pick for 2 years, held at our annual meetings, where growers bring in their wreaths and their trees for judging. And the top two that are the top two, Reserve and Grand Reserve, are chosen to go to the governor that year or the following year to present to the governor. So we've had that opportunity with the last 3 governors to present both wreaths and trees.
Wonderful.
And that was a real source of pride for us. The person who wins at the state level then competes at the national level, and that the top winners nationally go to the White House and the Vice President's home. We have not gotten that far with it, but we were very pleased to represent Michigan.
Definitely, to be that representative and to be recognized within the state as being a quality grower.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
that's really special to do that. And the work that you do here, I've been here, and it's making the greens. You do it from scratch, then basically.
We do.
You go, for example, to another store, and it may be made in a factory or things like that. All your work is custom greens right here on the farm, and
Most of our greens are grown right here, and then we choose trees that perhaps are not as well shaped for Christmas tree use, but that have exceptional greens, and so we cut those up into various lengths to put in our wreath products.
so with that now, Kathy, I think we'll take another break, and we'll come back for the final segment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a lot of history to Oxford. Hidden around every corner, deep in every crack, and sometimes right in front of you, waiting to be discovered. If you just dig a little, you'll find the great history of our beautiful town. Welcome to Historic Oxford.
And we're now going to wrap up our program here with Kathy Genovese. We're fortunate enough to be spending this beautiful fall afternoon out here at Candy Cane Christmas Tree Farm, talking with Kathy and the life experiences she's had coming here from Sicily, over in Italy, and then coming to Detroit, growing up, and then meeting her husband Frank, and then the involvement with her children, and finally, after 31 years of actively involved in the Christmas tree operation, getting all ready for the next season coming up within a few weeks. We talked about the recognition you've had in the quality products that you grow here. And was it something you learned? How did you learn to make the wreaths?
Well, it was economic necessity.
Okay.
That usually is the mother of invention many times.
Mm-hmm.
And when we moved out here and I became a stay-at-home mother, trying to make ends meet and having the availability of the trees and the greens is something.
So if some family came here to buy a Christmas tree,
Yeah.
you had the garland, you had the other decorations that could
Exactly.
complement the full home.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
where'd you learn to do that? Just by trial and error then, basically?
A lot of self-taught, trial and error, a lot of asking questions. There was no YouTube at the time. I think in making bows, which now I can make them in my sleep, I took a bow apart so many times until I got it right. And you do what you have to do to make a living and to survive and pay your bills, raise your children.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think being the business that you have, again, you're the bookkeeper as well as
Yes.
as
Yes.
one of the owners. And
Yes.
it's a huge operation, keeping track of all the taxes and
Absolutely.
keeping things afloat. Being friends on Facebook, I follow a lot of the things that you're doing as a couple and the vacations you've had, some of the places you've gone. What are some of we've talked about this nativity scene over here. Can you tell me what this represents?
Well, that was very special to us. Must have been, about 5 or 7 years ago, I can't remember exactly, but St. Anne's along with St. Joseph in Lake Orion, Father Mike Vershey from St. Joseph put together a small group, and actually one of your friends, Joan and Phil Menino, were on that trip with us, and we went on a trip to Jerusalem with Father Mike, and it was quite a emotional trip to go back to the birthplace of Jesus Christ, to see where it might have been, to visit the actual the garden where Jesus spent his last night, the Garden of Gethsemane, and then we visited Bethlehem and saw a cave, which very much could have been a cave similar to where we believe that Jesus was born. But as a result of that trip, we brought home this beautifully hand-carved scene of the Nativity from Bethlehem. And that was very, very meaningful to us because that's what Christmas is about to us, about the birth of Christ.
Definitely, and that's what you embody here at the farm. You have Christ in Christmas.
That's right.
That's so important. Other vacations that you've had. This one has been enjoyable. Other places you've
Well,
been?
we go back periodically and visit family in Sicily. All of my father's side is over there, as all of Frank's mother and father's side primarily is over there. So we enjoy visiting. But
So while you met Frank in Detroit,
Yes.
it just coincidentally, his
happened to be
ancestry was
very
similar.
Yes,
Interesting.
not too far away, probably another little town, maybe 30 miles away from where I
Wow.
was born. So
Small world.
coincidence had it that it worked out that way. But I want to insert that I am, yes, my nationality is Italian, and I'm proud of the culture, but I'm first and foremost an American citizen.
Definitely.
And I am grateful to be here and to and be part of the goals for the United States of America.
Excellent. So as we were talking about, you say you go back to the to Italy things you've seen there, things that would be interesting to our audience?
Well, because we're into farming,
Okay.
we always look wherever we go, and we look at what's being raised there, what's being grown there. We make comparisons, and actually we find that. My husband's cousins, for example, grow olive oil, and he's grown many other things besides. But we are so fortunate in this country to have extension universities that help people out, to have association groups such as Farm Bureau. They don't have something like that over there, and in most countries don't have that. So you find a lot more ugly competitiveness because everybody's trying to get their piece of the pie, and they don't share as much as a result, where I think here in the U.S. agriculture is far more willing to share and better our own resources by sharing information, and so again, that's another asset that we enjoy in the United States. It's fun to travel. It's fun to see different places. We've visited, well, after educating our children, after raising them, after getting the farm going and paying our bills. That was always one of our goals, to be able to travel. And we've taken a short trip to China. We've taken a trip to Africa, and European countries. And while we enjoy everything we see, the U.S. is really we're
always good to come home.
Always good to come home, and we are very privileged to live in this country.
Very good, very good. When another time that I had an opportunity to come here, you received recognition from Michigan State University, and there was a lot of write-up within the professional journals about the way you were growing Christmas trees. We think of a cut Christmas tree as being a tree you come into the field and just whack it off. And you folks were able to do something special with trees. And again, you worked hand in hand with Michigan State, the live potted trees, wasn't it?
Yes, we did. We did those for a while. My husband took a leadership position in establishing that, where we took a 4-year-old transplant, started in small pots, potted them into the next size, and the program was very successful. We're no longer doing that, George, because as we get older, that was very labor intensive, and as we get older, the pots get heavier. Have you ever noticed that?
Yes. Yes, I have. Yes,
And
I
so,
have, and I did.
yeah.
But it was neat that the families that wanted to have that living tree, you had the trees, even though you talked about the pots getting heavier, you had a planting medium that was a little bit lighter, so that you could actually move them around. And what was significant to me was that the people that followed the directions, listened to your suggestions, the results that first year was 100% survival rate, which was
pretty close to that.
that let us know that you were really doing a special job in preparing it, so that once the customer took it home and took care of it properly and planted it, that they would have a living tree in their yard.
Absolutely,
And,
absolutely. And we have part of our organization, some of the bigger farms have continued that sort of a program, so those kind of plants are still available. But they have much more labor.
But again, you were a leader in that. As
we
you were winning the state awards for the quality tree, you were also a leader in the pot and pot. So, Kathy, it has been a pleasure today to be here and talk with you. You've had a very interesting life that continues on and is very fruitful. So, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, George. It's been a pleasure for me as well. It's always good to see you, and I hope we can be inspiration to many people, as people have inspired us over the years.
Thank you, Kath.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.